Hi, this is Ryan Mauro, Shillman Fellow from the Clarion Project, and while you probably didn't hear much about it because it didn't really get any media coverage, new documents just exposed one of the biggest radical Islamic influence operations in American history. Spiro Agnew, Vice President to Nixon, resigned in 1973 after being convicted of tax evasion. Spiro then did what many newly unemployed politicians do. Looked for a way to cash in on his time in office. And who better to get cash from than the oil-rich governments who pursue an ideology that believes in the destruction of the very country that elected you. The former vice president asked the Saudi king for a $2 million deposit into a bank account so he could get a $200,000 salary every year just off the interest. Agnew told the Saudi government in 1980 that he'd work with them to help fight the Zionists. A recently uncovered thank you letter shows that Agnew then thanked the Saudi government for the deposit, making a former vice president of the United States an anti-Semitic agent of foreign influence. Now, if you've ever looked for a smoking gun to prove that the radical Islamic lobby is corrupting our system, this is it. So, who is this courageous investigative warrior exposing the radical Islamic lobby in the United States? Who do we have to go to find out more information about this important story? So who is it?
Just to be clear, this is a former American vice president writing to a foreign government asking for their help in fighting Jews in America.
Rachel Maddow? From MSNBC? Rachel Maddow? You mean this Rachel Maddow?
It's worth pointing out today, because of today's news, that Fox News in particular has also focused on another target, the scary Muslims that are out to get you. That has been a Fox News specialty for a long time now. And at Fox News, it is not only okay to talk about Muslims being scary on airplanes, it is expected. It is part of the agenda. It is what they are selling.
Is Islamophobia in American culture and American society and our politics? Oh, I think it's completely interwoven with the conservative movement in America.
There is a lot of Islamophobia in this country.
I think it's just a Snapchat of the Islamophobia industry that is well and alive in this country, and it just goes beyond that Heritage Foundation event, but it was just disgusting to watch.
I see Islamophobia becoming an acceptable racism, even among some liberals.
Last Wednesday, 4 Republican members of Congress held a press conference demanding that the House Sergeant-at-Arms investigate CARE, the Council on American Islamic Relations. They said they wanted an investigation because they said CARE had hatched a secret plot to try to place interns on Capitol Hill. Muslim interns.
So why the turnaround? Why is discussing this sort of problem no longer Islamophobic and suddenly so acceptable and important to talk about? Well, Rachel, why don't you tell us?
All this happening while the Trump administration continues to resist blaming the Saudi government for the murder. I mean, as we speak, the U.S.-Saudi relationship right now revolves around, among other things, a suspected illicit relationship between the Saudi royal family and the National Enquirer, which is headed up by the president's longtime friend, David Pecker. It was announced that the Trump administration is also now being investigated by the Oversight Committee in Congress over a secret plan to transfer highly sensitive nuclear technology to Saudi Arabia. And specifically for the now quite pressing question of how exactly the investigation into the current president might end. Specifically the question of whether the president could be indicted.
Oh, I get it now. It's a priority now because it plays into the narrative that President Trump and the Republican Party are colluding with foreign influence peddlers who seek to subvert our democracy. It's this political game, the one where you try to score as many points for your side as possible, regardless of the facts, that leaves Americans blind to the scope of the threat. When the Islamist lobby, including the Muslim Brotherhood, was close to the Bush administration, there was barely a whisper. Neither side touched it because they both wanted the support of those organizations and feared offending them. When the Islamist lobbies were embraced by the Obama administration, few Democrats paid attention. And when the Islamist lobbies from Turkey and Qatar and others get close to the Trump administration, that same familiar silence returns. This partisan game stops Americans from seeing the totality of the threat. Hostile influence operations are too big of a deal to be treated merely as partisan weapons. We will never clearly see the scope of the threat from Russia, from China, or from various factions from radical Islam or other extremist groups until we rip off our partisan blinders. When the radical Islamic lobby builds ties to the Republican Party, then all Americans, especially conservatives, have a duty to expose and oppose it. When the radical Islamic lobby builds ties to the Democratic Party, then all Americans, especially progressives, also have the same duty. Stop protecting your political tribes and start protecting America. My name is Ryan Mauro. Thanks for watching.